Ethan Carter stood before the glass doors of the Stellar Integration Agency's main office, gazing at the shimmering logo that seemed to float over its sleek, metallic facade. A subtle tension spread through his body, a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Today was the day he had been waiting for, the arrival of Selara, an alien researcher from the planet Veyna. As a cultural exchange specialist, he felt ready for anything, but his heart still thudded in his chest. This was the first time in Earth's history that a formalized living arrangement between a human and a Veynian would take place. The multi-year pilot project had been championed by a consortium of interplanetary delegates. Yet, it had faced its share of setbacks, translations that fell short, long-distance miscommunications, and the perplexing differences between human emotions and the Veynian approach to life. The Veynians, he had read, were known for an almost complete absence of outward emotion, so different from human beings, who brimmed with passions, impulses, loves, and hatreds. Ethan carefully adjusted his collar. He was clad in a neatly pressed shirt of pale gray, a color that the diplomat from Veyna had advised would be seen as neutral and inoffensive to their eyes. In truth, his mind drifted as he pondered the life that lay ahead. He imagined cozy breakfasts with an extraterrestrial housemate, awkward miscommunications, and daily lessons in each other's customs. Most of all, he braced himself for the unexpected, for who could truly predict the synergy or friction between two such disparate species? The agency's corridors stretched out like the labyrinth of a futuristic city, all gleaming surfaces and subtle hums of technologically advanced power systems. He stepped into an atrium where a few onlookers milled about. Some had come to witness what was being called a historic event in Earth's cultural timeline. Others were journalists, brandishing microphones or camera drones. Beyond them, at the heart of the crowd, stood a tall, willowy figure, flanked by two serious-faced individuals in suits that matched Ethan's gray color scheme. The figure stepped forward. Ethan's eyes quickly absorbed her features. She was slightly taller than the average Earth woman, perhaps by a few centimeters, and her dark, lustrous hair flowed around her shoulders in shimmering waves. At a moment's glance, it might have passed for a dyed black, but upon closer inspection, it had an otherworldly sheen that seemed to shift color under different angles of light. Her eyes, a pale lavender, carried a steady, observant gaze that revealed curiosity more than emotion. With a polite nod, Ethan approached. "Selara?" "Yes," came a soft, measured reply. Her voice was low and resonant, though each syllable had an almost musical precision. "I'm Ethan Carter," he said, offering a hand. The Veynian custom for greeting was uncertain. He had read that they typically offered a slight bow, but the manual also mentioned that they were, in certain circumstances, open to mimic human gestures. Selara looked at his hand for a moment, then placed her own, cool and smooth, against his palm. He gently shook it. "It's a pleasure to meet you. On behalf of Earth, let me formally welcome you to our planet." A flicker of color wove through her hair, fleeting touches of a faint pastel violet. He had read in the research notes that the hair of Veynians sometimes reacted involuntarily to emotional or intellectual stimuli, but the phenomenon remained mysterious and unpredictable. "Thank you, Ethan Carter," she said softly, tilting her head with the faintest sign of wonder. "I anticipate our time together will be illuminating." Their ride to Ethan's modest but comfortable suburban apartment took place in a specialized transport vehicle arranged by the Stellar Integration Agency. It hovered with minimal sound, ensuring a smooth, discreet journey that allowed them a chance to talk. Sunlight streamed through the tinted windows, revealing a bustling cityscape beyond. People and vehicles zipped past, oblivious to the visitor from another world in their midst. Selara's gaze wandered out the window, her posture upright, hands resting loosely in her lap. She seemed neither awed nor disinterested, simply present. Occasionally, a subtle wave of silvery lavender danced through her hair. Ethan interpreted that as a sign of some internal reaction, perhaps curiosity or mild surprise. He decided to open the conversation. "So, your planet, Veyna. The briefings mentioned a place of advanced technology, but also with a strong sense of collective unity. Is that correct?" She paused for a moment, as though measuring her words with utmost precision. "Yes, that is right. On Veyna, knowledge is shared collectively, and emotional expressions are rather subdued, as I believe you have read. We do not typically attach personal judgments to experiences. Instead, we gather data and continue to learn. Ethan nodded. That's fascinating. We humans are a bit different. We tend to see our experiences through emotional lenses, especially experiences that resonate with our deepest feelings. Another flicker of color appeared in her hair, this time a faint shade of teal. Then it vanished as swiftly as it arrived. She turned her gaze toward him. I wish to observe these emotional expressions in more detail. This is the primary reason I have come, to research how human bonds are formed, especially romantic or mating bonds, as your texts describe them. Emotional dynamics are a cornerstone of your societies, are they not? Ethan cleared his throat, a small flush creeping onto his cheeks. He had known that a large part of Selara's research was on human relationships, including the intimate aspects, but hearing her discuss it so openly felt slightly disconcerting. Yes, love, romance, and familial bonds all shape our lives. I imagine it must be quite unusual from a Veynian perspective. Selara inclined her head. That is why I find it so compelling. Our own approach to reproduction is far more clinical, involving carefully monitored processes and minimal emotional involvement. Many on Veyna wonder if we lack some dimension of existence by living that way. Others believe it grants us clarity. I am sent here to gather objective data about your ways of coupling, your concept of families, and the emotional tapestry that defines the human experience. The vehicle slowed to a stop in front of Ethan's apartment complex. Well, he said, adjusting his seatbelt and offering a faint grin. I guess we'll both be learning from each other. The small yet modern apartment building stood by a row of neatly trimmed hedges and modest trees. Ethan led Selara through the front entrance, up a short flight of stairs, and into a corridor where the beige carpeting dampened their footsteps. The building was decidedly unremarkable compared to the spires and domes of the city's center. Yet for him, it was home, a welcoming, comforting space he had cultivated over the past few years. He unlocked his apartment door and gestured for her to step inside. The entryway opened onto a cozy living room decorated with warm wooden furniture, a plush sofa, and tasteful artwork on cream-colored walls. The large window overlooked a small courtyard below, where neighbors sometimes gathered for barbecues on the weekend. Selara moved slowly, scanning the surroundings with keen interest. Her eyes fell on the tall bookshelf in the corner, brimming with texts about Earth's history, art, and scientific journals. Ethan's personal trove of knowledge. A slight ripple of color shimmered in her hair, faint amber, then receding. Your dwelling is tranquil, she remarked, her voice carefully measured. Do all humans live in such a manner? He let out a light chuckle. Not all. Many live in houses, some in very tall apartment blocks, others in rural areas on farms. Earth has a wide range of living conditions. Selara nodded, walking over to a wooden table by the window. She ran her slender fingers over the smooth, polished surface. Our dwellings on Veyna are constructed of materials that respond to climate adjustments, and many share communal spaces. This arrangement of individual units for each person or small family is intriguing. Ethan guided her to the short hallway, showing her the bedroom she would occupy, newly furnished with fresh linens, an adjustable bed, and a small desk for her to conduct her research. I hope this suits your needs, he said, noticing she was carefully examining the lighting panel on the wall. Those switches control the brightness and warmth of the light. Just slide up or down. She followed his direction with a hint of fascination, the overhead light shifting from cool white to soft amber. Briefly, her hair responded with a subtle streak of lilac. I appreciate the accommodations, she said evenly. I sense that every detail of your environment can convey something about your emotional states. Perhaps over time, I will become more attuned to these nuances. Ethan offered a friendly smile. Take your time settling in. Once you're comfortable, we can discuss your research, or maybe just talk about life on Earth. Don't feel pressured. Thank you, she replied, inclining her head. I look forward to our continued interaction. Over the next few days, Selara and Ethan gradually fell into a routine that tested both of their capacities for patience and adaptation. Early morning found Ethan preparing tea while Selara observed his process, jotting down notes in a small data recorder. She asked meticulous questions about the meaning of comfort drinks, why humans often enjoyed sipping something warm while preparing for the day, and whether it signified deeper emotional states, like security or nostalgia. Ethan, somewhat amused, tried his best to explain. Tea can have a calming effect, but it's not just the chemistry. It's the ritual, the habit, that fosters a sense of peace. We humans derive comfort from many small things. Selara's hair occasionally revealed fleeting swirls of muted color. She would open her mouth as though about to speak, only to close it, as if considering another angle. He found her inquisitiveness refreshing, though at times he felt examined, as if under a scientist's microscope. He reminded himself that this was, in fact, her role, to observe and report. One evening, as they settled down for dinner, Ethan having prepared a simple meal of roasted vegetables and rice, Selara startled him by saying, "I wish to understand human mating rituals, specifically the emotional aspect of romantic involvement." He coughed, nearly choking on a piece of carrot. "Oh, sure. That's certainly a topic." He set down his fork, trying to compose himself. "Where would you like to begin?" She regarded him with her calm, steady gaze. "Perhaps with how you, personally, respond when you experience attraction or love. Does your physiology change? Do you behave differently?" He felt heat rise to his cheeks, but he cleared his throat and proceeded as candidly as he could. "Well, yes. We often experience changes in heart rate, a sense of excitement or nervousness. We might smile more, or feel that we want to be close to the person, physically and emotionally. Different people show it in different ways, though." Selara listened intently. A wave of pale turquoise coursed through her hair. "Is this process entirely subconscious, or can one control it? Some aspects can be reined in, but often, strong emotions override logic. Attraction or love can make us act in ways we might not predict." Selara nodded. Her hair gradually returned to its sleek, dark shade. On Veyna, relationships are typically arranged based on compatibility metrics. We do not develop these strong emotional attachments, yet I wonder if we are missing an essential part of the experience. Her words hung in the air, stirring a subtle sense of empathy within Ethan. He realized that her curiosity was not purely academic. There was a personal dimension, even if she herself might not fully grasp it. "That's part of the beauty and chaos of human relationships," Ethan said gently. "The depth and unpredictability. Sometimes they lead to heartbreak, but sometimes they bring incredible joy. It's an adventure." Selara inclined her head, taking in his words. "An adventure," she repeated softly, letting the concept settle in her mind. Weeks drifted by, bringing them into a comfortable rhythm of daily life. Selara accompanied Ethan to grocery stores, observed how humans selected produce, and casually chatted with neighbors. She visited his workplace at the Stellar Integration Agency's local department, where she viewed the intricacies of Earth's organizational structures for interplanetary cooperation. She even joined him on a weekend visit to a nearby museum, her hair flashing with deeper colors whenever she encountered especially emotive artworks. As she gathered data, she also collected glimpses of genuine human existence. It was in the laughter of a child chasing bubbles near the park, in the elderly couple that held hands while walking slowly, in the teenage drama of heartbreak and reconciliation playing out on a city bench. Through it all, Ethan became her unofficial guide to human emotions, though, increasingly, she was discovering the territory on her own. One evening, with the sky a tapestry of deep blues and scattered stars, they found themselves sitting on the small balcony outside Ethan's living room. The gentle hum of city life drifted up from the streets below. Selara stared out at the twinkling lights while Ethan sipped a mug of warm tea. She spoke softly, her voice gaining a subtle timbre he had rarely heard before. "These past weeks, I have experienced sensations I cannot fully quantify. They occur when I observe acts of kindness or when I notice certain complexities in your own demeanor, Ethan. I suppose one might call them emotional responses, though I am uncertain." He felt his chest tighten slightly. "What do they feel like?" he asked, intrigued by her admission. Her hair shimmered faintly, a swirl of lavender and teal. An internal warmth, accompanied by an urge to connect, to understand, to remain in proximity. At times, it's nearly disorienting. I find myself thinking about how you might interpret an event, or how you might feel about a certain scenario. Ethan's heartbeat accelerated. "That's Well, that's empathy, he said quietly. Caring about someone else's perspective or wanting to be near them is a form of emotional bonding. She nodded slowly, her gaze distant. It is new to me. On Veyna, one rarely considers such attachments in daily life. We function collectively, but maintain emotional distance. Yet here, I am beginning to see how emotional connections can be powerful. He smiled, feeling a gentle warmth blossoming in his own chest. I'm glad you're seeing this side of us. Humans are complicated, but we can also be compassionate and deeply caring. They sat together in a tranquil hush, the shared moment of revelation spanning the silence like a bridge between their two worlds. Life pressed on, weaving them tighter into each other's routines. Ethan discovered her taste for mild earth spices, her keen interest in human folklore, and her sudden fascination with the subtle changes in body language when humans felt affection. She discovered his quiet generosity, how he'd leave a cup of tea at her desk when she was deeply immersed in her research, how he'd tilt his head and laugh softly whenever she made an observation that was both incisive and unexpectedly naive. Their late-night conversations became more frequent, drifting into deeper territory, questions about existential purpose, the notion of souls, and what it meant to desire companionship on a level beyond logic. Selara's hair often reflected these discussions with fleeting, iridescent shades, as though her unaccustomed emotions found expression in that shimmering tapestry. One particularly meaningful night, Ethan invited her to a cozy jazz club. Dim lights, soft melodies, and the smoky voice of the singer created a soothing ambience. Selara, initially distant, gradually seemed drawn in by the emotional power of the music. She watched couples sway on the dance floor, eyes closed, bodies aligned in a gentle rhythm. When Ethan, somewhat nervously, asked if she would like to dance, she nodded with an air of curiosity. He led her onto the small dance floor, placing a hand lightly on her waist. She followed, a bit stiff at first, but then she relaxed into the slow, swaying motion. I can feel your heartbeat through our contact, she whispered at one point, her eyes closing as she let the music guide her. It is soothing. He gazed at her, captivated by the faint glow of her hair, an otherworldly swirl of pastel greens and purples. It's part of the experience, he murmured. The closeness, the comfort, it's a form of trust, of saying, I'm here with you, in this moment, and that's all that matters. Her hair glimmered more vibrantly. It seemed so simple, yet so profound. They continued swaying, the music wrapping around them like a gentle embrace, bridging two species in a timeless dance of discovery. As the months passed, Selara's research progressed, but so did the shifting emotional tapestry within her. She documented extensive notes on human mating rituals, from casual dating customs to long-standing traditions of courtship in various cultures. She interviewed colleagues at Ethan's workplace, conversed with couples in the local park, and even watched romantic films, documenting her reactions to stories of love, heartbreak, and reconciliation. Despite her methodical approach, it became increasingly clear that her perspective was changing. She was no longer merely an observer. She found herself drawn to Ethan in ways that transcended scientific curiosity. She laughed more often, something that initially came out as a stilted, almost mechanical sound, but gradually became warm and spontaneous. Her hair's colors grew more vibrant, shifting in subtle waves, and she found it difficult at times to hide her feelings. Unbeknownst to either of them, they were forging something rare, a deeply personal bond that defied both the stereotypes humans held of dispassionate aliens and the Veynian notion of purely logical companionship. Even so, they hesitated to define these new emotions, uncertain of the consequences. Late one evening, as they lounged in the living room, Ethan ventured gently, Selara, how do you feel about all of this? Our living arrangement, your research, our friendship. She looked at him with a soft expression, her hair drifting into tranquil shades of lilac. I find it comforting, at times exhilarating. I have begun to crave your presence, your conversation, even your touch. When we are apart, I wonder what you are doing, if you are safe. This is not typical for a Veynian. I wonder if I am faulty or if I am evolving. Ethan's breath caught. I wouldn't say you're faulty. I think you're just feeling for the first time. It's something many of us go through, realizing we care about someone else, wanting them close, wanting to share life's joys and burdens with them. Her lips curved slightly, an embryonic smile. Perhaps that is it. When I was assigned to this program, I intended only to record data. I did not anticipate my data-gathering instruments would be insufficient to explain what I am experiencing. He reached out and gently placed his hand on hers. Feelings are sometimes beyond measurement. That's why we treasure them, because they can't always be pinned down or fully rationalized. She nodded, a faint glimmer passing through her hair. Their hands lingered together, neither wanting to break the contact. In that stillness, an unspoken understanding arose, an acknowledgement that something was growing between them, something that transcended mere research. In the hush of a warm summer night, under a sky awash with constellations, Ethan and Selara shared their first kiss. It happened on the balcony where they had once spoken about empathy and connection. She had been describing her newfound appreciation for music, how it evoked sensations she had never known. Ethan listened, heart resonating with her quiet wonder. A subtle hush fell over them, as if the entire city paused in anticipation. She gazed at him, hair tinted by starlight, a faint prismatic sheen betraying her swirling emotions. He leaned in, gently, uncertainly, and she did not withdraw. Their lips met, soft and tentative, like the brush of dawn on a world awakening from night. Her hair flashed with brilliant color, an iridescent cascade that shimmered and danced. She drew in a soft breath, her entire being seemingly aglow with a sense of wonder. Ethan felt his heart swell, an indescribable blend of relief, joy, and a deeper yearning. When they parted, she exhaled slowly, her eyes half closed. "Is this," she murmured, "what humans call an act of affection, or something more?" His voice was hushed with emotion. "It can be both. It can be a sign of affection, or it can mean something deeper, love, desire, all kinds of feelings that words only partly capture." She nodded, her hair still glowing with subtle waves of color. "Then, I would like to experience this more." Ethan smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "So would I." Their relationship blossomed, tentatively at first, like seedlings pushing through uncertain soil. Selara continued her official research but began to merge it with her personal experiences. She discovered that emotional vulnerability could be both terrifying and liberating, that longing for someone's presence could lead to sleepless nights, but also to profound peace when they were near. For Ethan, the journey was equally transformative. He had seen aliens before, worked alongside them in professional contexts, but never had he dreamed of forging an emotional bond with one. Love was complicated enough between humans. How much more intricate could it be between two different species? Yet, ironically, the differences drew them closer. Where once he felt the need to explain his every emotion, he now found Selara anticipating his moods with uncanny insight, as though her newly awakened empathy blossomed with each passing day. Whenever they touched, her hair rippled with luminous patterns, a silent symphony of her feelings. In private moments, he teased her gently about it, and she would give him that shy, developing smile, admitting that her control over such displays was still incomplete. But neither of them minded. The colors were a window into her heart, a vivid testament to her deepening capacity for emotion. Yet, as their bond grew, so did the shadow of her obligations to Veyna. Early on, Selara had explained that her assignment was time-limited. She was to report her findings to her people, and eventually, she would be expected to return. Her superiors had not anticipated a scenario where she might choose otherwise. Veynians did not typically form emotional attachments, much less fall in love with humans. In quiet moments, that knowledge weighed on them both. They knew the day would come when she might have to depart, or at least face the decision. But for now, they reveled in the fleeting wonder of discovery, of kisses under starry skies, of whispered confidences that bridged the immense gulf between Earth and Veyna. The turning point arrived unexpectedly, on a crisp autumn afternoon. Selara received a communication from the Veynian consulate, summoning her to a private meeting. She informed Ethan, her voice tinged with uneasy resolve, and he drove her to the appointed location, an anonymous, sleek building near the city's edge. She entered alone, clad in a neutral gray coat that matched the subdued colors of her hair. He waited in the lobby, his anxiety growing with each passing minute. Finally, she emerged, her face a mask of composure, yet her hair was tinted an unmistakable shade of distressed purple. Ethan rose quickly. What happened? She exhaled, carefully and slowly. They have reviewed my preliminary reports. They sense I have been compromised by Earth's environment and by my interactions with humans, specifically with you. They believe my neutrality is at risk. My superiors have ordered me to return to Veyna. His heart sank. How soon? A flicker of sorrow passed over her features. Within a fortnight. The next Veynian transport is scheduled to depart from Earth's orbital station 2 weeks from now. Ethan raked a hand through his hair, trying to steady his breathing. But is there no way to extend your stay? You're still in the middle of your study, aren't you? She looked away, her hair darkening to a troubled hue. They insist. They claim enough data has been gathered. They also mentioned concerns that I have formed an emotional entanglement that may jeopardize the objectivity of my mission. The words lingered like a chill in the air. Ethan swallowed hard. That's not just an emotional entanglement, he said softly, stepping closer to her. It's love. She met his gaze, eyes shimmering with unspoken emotion. On Veyna, love is not recognized in the same manner. My superiors would see this as a dangerous deviation, a contamination that could affect the collective. Ethan gently placed his hands on her shoulders. What do you feel? Her breath hitched. I feel as though leaving you would tear something vital from me, something I have only just discovered within myself. His heart pounded with the intensity of an approaching storm. Then, let's find a way, any way, to keep you here. There must be options, extending the exchange program, or some sort of diplomatic petition. She shook her head, hair shimmering in anxious patterns. They were unequivocal. If I do not return, I will be labeled a defector. All contact and resources from Veyna would be cut off. I could not return home without facing severe consequences. Ethan held her in silence. The cold finality of that moment weighed heavily on them both. Her mission had always had an expiration date, but they had hoped to find a solution that would allow them to be together. Now, that hope seemed to vanish in the face of her superior's rigid demands. The days following the consulate meeting were overshadowed by quiet dread. Ethan found Selara gazing out the apartment window for hours on end, her hair a subdued and listless grayish shade. Their once lively discussions about human culture dwindled, replaced by the looming reality of her impending departure. A swirl of conflicting emotions churned in Ethan's chest, desperation, anger, a longing to protect her. He spent hours combing through the interplanetary exchange regulations, looking for loopholes or precedents that might allow her to stay. But every road led to bureaucratic dead ends, or threatened severe repercussions for her on Veyna. One evening, while Ethan was preparing dinner, Selara approached him, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan, there is something else I must tell you. He turned, concern etched on his features. What is it? She swallowed, clearly struggling to find the right words. I have been feeling unusual symptoms. I consulted a doctor who specializes in xenobiology. They performed a scan, and she trailed off, her hair abruptly flashing with a storm of color. I am pregnant. Time seemed to halt. Ethan stood there, wooden spoon in hand, mind reeling. Pregnant? Are you sure? Is that even possible between us? She nodded, eyes shining with a profound mix of fear and wonder. It appears so. The doctor was quite astonished, yet the signs are unmistakable. A new life is forming, somehow bridging our two genetic codes. His heart pounded. The enormity of it all crashed over him in a wave of awe and terror. Selara, he whispered, placing a trembling hand on her arm. That means we're going to have a child? She closed her eyes, drawing a shuddering breath. Yes, and this changes everything. Veyna will not acknowledge this kind of hybrid birth. It is unprecedented. They may see it as a threat or an abomination. Ethan pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her close as her hair shimmered in tumultuous shades. The smell of dinner cooking in the background felt absurdly mundane against the life-altering revelation happening in that moment. I won't let them take you away, he whispered fiercely, his chest tightening with resolve. We'll figure out how to protect you, to protect our child. She clung to him, her voice quavering. I do not want to leave, Ethan. But the consequences. I cannot imagine what my people will do if they find out. He looked down at her, eyes brimming with a fierce tenderness. Then we won't let them find out until we have a plan. We have 2 weeks. Maybe that's enough time to contact the right people on Earth to get you sanctuary." She nodded, tears glistening at the corners of her usually composed gaze. "Yes, let us try." Ethan spent every waking moment in the following days reaching out to allies at the Stellar Integration Agency, as well as sympathetic officials from other planets who had seen the benefits of cross-species collaboration. He explained Selara's situation, carefully omitting certain details about the pregnancy until he trusted the person on the other end of the line. Meanwhile, Selara wrestled with the physiological changes sweeping through her body, subtle shifts in her energy, a heightened sense of smell, fleeting moments of fatigue. Yet along with these came an unexpected wave of new emotions, a deeper sense of connection to life itself. Each time she thought about the child forming within her, her hair glowed with a gentle pastel palette, an involuntary sign of her protective, nurturing stirrings. Despite their best efforts, the bureaucratic machine churned slowly. Official channels required reams of paperwork, medical records, and disclaimers. Some officials expressed sympathy, but others balked at the notion of harboring a Veynian defector. The days slipped away, each one bringing the dreaded departure date closer. Finally, with a mere 2 days left, Ethan received a coded message from a high-ranking interplanetary diplomat named Shauna Wheeler. She proposed a clandestine meeting at a secure facility, indicating she had the power to grant limited-term protective status to Selara if certain conditions were met. Ethan and Selara rushed to the specified location, an unremarkable building in a quiet suburban area. They were led into a private office by stern-faced guards. Shauna Wheeler, a composed woman in a neat, charcoal suit, greeted them with a nod. "I have reviewed your case," she said curtly, cutting through formalities. "You, Selara, are not only a guest under our cultural exchange program, but also carrying a child that holds unprecedented genetic significance. This is a delicate matter." Selara bowed her head, her hair dimming slightly. "I am aware." Shauna sighed. "The Veynian government is extremely influential. Granting you sanctuary might trigger a diplomatic incident. However, I also realize that forcing you to return could violate certain interplanetary accords protecting individual autonomy, especially considering your pregnancy." Ethan spoke up, voice trembling with suppressed anxiety. "So, is there a way?" Shauna tapped her pen against the desk. "Potentially. There is a rarely invoked clause in the Interplanetary Cultural Preservation Act. It allows for the temporary protection of any pregnant individual from a species recognized by the Interstellar Council, as a means to preserve the potential offspring. The child you carry, Miss Selara, is half human, which makes it subject to Earth's protection laws." Hope flared in Ethan's chest. "So that means she can stay?" Shauna's expression softened just a fraction. "Yes, for at least 1 year, while an interplanetary panel reviews the unique circumstances of this case. After that, the panel will decide on the child's status and, by extension, the mother's. It's not a permanent guarantee, but it's the best I can offer under current laws." Selara's eyes glistened, her voice wavering. "Thank you." Shauna slid a folder across the desk. "These are the documents. Sign them, and I'll file for immediate protective status. It must remain discreet for now. The Veynian government won't be happy, but they're bound by certain agreements. They can't forcibly remove you without a significant breach of treaty. Just understand that you'll both be living under a degree of scrutiny and caution." Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "I understand. And we're beyond grateful." Selara bowed deeply. "I owe you a debt I can never repay." Shauna managed a faint smile. "Don't thank me yet. This will be an ongoing process. Veyna might fight back in the courts. In the meantime, focus on keeping yourselves safe and healthy. Good luck." The day of departure arrived. Instead of heading to the orbital station, Selara and Ethan stayed in their apartment, quietly signing the final documents that formalized her protected status. The tension was palpable. They knew that the official Veynian ship would be waiting at the station, expecting her. They also knew that by not boarding, she was effectively defying her homeworld. In that tense silence, they waited for the fallout. Hours passed. Then came a terse communication from the Veynian consulate, expressing extreme disappointment in Selara's decision and issuing a demand for her immediate compliance. Ethan braced himself for some kind of forced retrieval, But the days rolled on without any direct intervention. It seemed the consulate had discovered Earth's protective ruling. Perhaps they deemed it too risky to cause a diplomatic incident, at least for the moment. Selara was free to remain, if not entirely, without a sense of foreboding that her decision would carry massive repercussions on Veyna. In the hush of their apartment, they clung to each other. Over a simple home-cooked meal, she looked at him, her hair shifting with the first sense of peace she had felt in many days. "We have crossed a threshold, Ethan. There is no turning back." He gently caressed her cheek. "We'll face whatever comes. Together." Weeks melded into months. Selara's pregnancy progressed steadily, her physiology adapting in ways even she did not fully understand. Earth doctors, working with Veynian medical data, tried to devise a plan for a safe, hybrid childbirth. In the process, they discovered new intricacies of Veynian genetics, potential breakthroughs that might improve cross-species medicine in the future. Ethan hovered protectively over her, doing his best to alleviate her discomfort. He prepared nutrient-rich meals, massaged her shoulders when fatigue set in, and offered gentle reassurance whenever her anxieties flared. As her belly swelled, he found himself astonished by the visible changes, thinking back to the nights she first arrived, aloof and emotionless. Now, her hair glowed with soft, maternal warmth whenever he placed his hand on her abdomen. Their emotional bond deepened immeasurably. Selara no longer approached love as a concept to be studied, but as a living, breathing force that ignited every corner of her being. She wrote new journals, less analytical and more reflective, on the wonders of forging an emotional life, how it enriched her perspective and changed her forever. Meanwhile, news of their situation slowly leaked into certain media circles. Rumors of a Veynian human hybrid circulated, sometimes with inaccurate details. Some voices criticized the union as unnatural or reckless. Others praised it as a landmark event in interplanetary harmony. Through it all, Ethan tried to shield Selara from the more hostile rhetoric. On a cold winter day, an unexpected visitor knocked at their apartment door. Ethan answered, finding himself face to face with a tall, solemn man clad in a Veynian diplomatic robe. He looked impeccably calm, though a flicker of tension showed in his bearing. "I am Envoy Dalen," he said, bowing slightly. "I have come on behalf of the Veynian Council to speak with Selara." Ethan's heart pounded. He glanced over his shoulder. Selara stood in the living room, hands resting lightly on her belly, her hair a subdued mixture of gray and gold. "It's all right," she said quietly, stepping forward. Dalen regarded her with grave eyes. "Selara, your defiance has caused significant upheaval on Veyna. Many question whether your condition is legitimate. Some believe you have been corrupted by Earth influences, that the child is a physical manifestation of that corruption." She lifted her chin, her composure firm. "I expected as much." Dalen's expression shifted, showing a hint of something akin to compassion. "But there are others, growing numbers, who are beginning to wonder if perhaps we have been denying ourselves a fundamental aspect of being. Your reports about love, about emotional enrichment, have quietly circulated. Some of our people are intrigued, or even inspired. They want to learn more." Selara blinked, her hair shimmering with cautious hope. "Truly," he nodded. "Truly. There is a contingent that believes your experiences might herald a new era, one in which Veynians acknowledge the value of emotion. They see you as a catalyst for change, though many are also fearful. The council is divided. They have sent me here to assess the situation firsthand." Ethan, standing protectively at Selara's side, asked, "What does that mean for her? Is she still in danger?" Dalen considered his words carefully. "At the moment, her defection status remains in effect. But if she were to return voluntarily..." Selara shook her head, her hair flashing with alarm. "I cannot. I will not jeopardize my child's safety." Dalen held up a hand. "I understand. My mission is to observe and report. I am not here to forcibly retrieve you. However, I do request to witness your life on Earth, to compile a new perspective for the Council. Perhaps, with time, we can negotiate a more peaceful resolution, one that acknowledges your choice." Selara exchanged a glance with Ethan. Slowly, she nodded. "I will show you what my life is like now. Perhaps it will open their minds." Envoy Dalen stayed on Earth for several weeks, observing Selara's daily routines, attending her medical appointments, and conversing with Ethan about the complexities of human emotions. He kept meticulous records, taking note of how her hair signaled her states of mind and how deeply she seemed to care for Ethan. He also witnessed how strongly Ethan and their friends rallied around her, offering a support network that encompassed joy, worry, and celebration. Dalen attended a small baby shower thrown by Ethan's close colleagues, where Selara was lavished with gifts, tiny blankets, plush toys, and well wishes for the soon-to-arrive child. Selara, touched by the warmth, felt her once foreign emotions blossom anew. Over time, Dalen's demeanor shifted from guarded to quietly contemplative. He asked more personal questions. How does it feel to miss someone? To long for them with no guarantee of resolution? How does love shape your decision-making? And to Selara, do you ever regret leaving Veyna for this uncertain path? She would answer truthfully each time, her hair reflecting her sincerity. I do not regret it. My experiences have expanded my understanding of life itself. I only wish my people could share in that expansion without fear. When the time came for Dalen's departure, he met with Selara and Ethan in the cozy living room that had become the heart of their new life. He bowed respectfully. I have enough to form my report. I will not guarantee that the council will accept your choices, but I have seen things here that challenge many of our assumptions. I hope it will at least spark a meaningful dialogue among the Veynian leadership. Ethan extended a hand. After a moment's hesitation, Dalen shook it. Thank you for your open-mindedness, Ethan said. I hope we can find a peaceful path forward, one that doesn't force Selara to abandon who she's become. Dalen offered a small, solemn nod. I wish you and the child good health. Winter turned to spring, bringing new life and the promise of renewal. Selara's belly grew round, and each day she could feel the child's movements, a gentle flutter that sometimes made her gasp with astonished delight. Ethan was both vigilant and exuberant, fussing over her comfort, reading countless articles on prenatal care, and making sure she never felt alone in the journey. Though the protective status from Earth still stood, they knew the fight wasn't over. Letters from Veynians who had discovered her story began to trickle in, some condemning her as a traitor, others praising her courage. Whispers spoke of a cultural schism forming on Veyna, with old guard traditionalists pitted against a growing faction that believed in the potential benefits of acknowledging emotion. Ethan often found her reading these letters late at night, her hair swirling with an amalgam of colors, sadness, hope, uncertainty. She would turn to him, eyes moist, and confess her worries. Have I destabilized my entire planet? Or have I opened a door they needed to open? He would hold her close, press a kiss to her forehead, and murmur softly, change is hard. Sometimes it takes a catalyst. Maybe that's you, Selara. Maybe you're giving your people a chance to grow in ways they never imagined. At long last, the day arrived. As thunder rumbled outside and rain beat down on the city, Selara felt the first, unmistakable pains of labor. Ethan rushed her to the specially equipped medical center, heart pounding with both excitement and terror. A team of human and Veynian-descended doctors stood by, uncertain of how the hybrid birth would unfold. Hours of labor ensued. Selara, despite her advanced knowledge and previously stoic nature, found herself overwhelmed by the intensity of the experience. Yet through every contraction, every wave of pain, she felt Ethan's hand clutching hers. His presence grounded her. In that crucible of physical anguish, she discovered the full expanse of human empathy and love. Finally, with a final, gasping push, a newborn cry rang out. A thin, delicate sound that brought tears to Ethan's eyes. The baby was placed in Selara's trembling arms, the medical team quietly cheering. She stared down at the tiny being whose features were a remarkable fusion of both species. The baby's eyes blinked open, a soft lavender hue reflecting Selara's heritage, and a patch of hair, dark with a hint of shimmering undertones, sat atop a small head. Ethan swallowed hard, tears streaming down his face. He leaned down to kiss Selara's forehead, gently placing a hand on the infant's back. We did it, he whispered. He or she? The doctor smiled. A healthy baby girl. Selara gazed at her daughter in wonder, hair shimmering with the most radiant pastel palette Ethan had ever seen. The baby's cry subsided, replaced by curious murmuring sounds, tiny hands curling and uncurling against Selara's chest. In that moment, all the strife, Fear and uncertainty seemed to recede, overshadowed by the miracle of new life. Selara gently cradled the newborn, tears of joy and love sliding down her cheeks. She turned to Ethan, voice trembling with emotion. "Our child," she whispered. "She is the bridge between our worlds." He pressed his forehead to hers, eyes closed. "And she's absolutely perfect." News of the birth spread quickly, first through the medical staff, and then through channels that reached both Earth and, inevitably, Veyna. The naysayers decried it as an abomination, but a surprising wave of positive response arose. Veynians who were curious about the possibilities of combining logic with empathy, and humans who saw in the child a hope for genuine interplanetary unity. Envoy Dalen sent a discreet message to Selara and Ethan, congratulating them on a joyous event that might herald a new phase of cooperation and understanding. He indicated that the Veynian Council was engaged in intense debate, with more moderate voices gaining traction. Selara, physically weakened from the ordeal of birth, found her spirit soaring. She gazed at her daughter, whom they named Mira, a name that signified wonder in an ancient Earth language and carried a melodic resonance in Veynian. Days turned into weeks as they adjusted to parenthood. Ethan rocked Mira to sleep in the quiet hours of the night, singing soft lullabies. Selara discovered the profound instincts that welled up within her, the fierce protectiveness and boundless affection that might once have been incomprehensible to her. And every time she cradled her daughter, her hair danced with a vibrant cascade of color, leaving no doubt that emotion had found a permanent home in her being. Several months later, an official envoy from Veyna arrived on Earth, not with threats, but with a cautious overture of dialogue. They requested a diplomatic meeting, inviting Selara and Ethan to share insights into the emotional tapestry that had so long been absent on Veyna. They extended a possible avenue for cultural reevaluation, citing the wave of domestic interest that Selara's research and personal journey had ignited. Although apprehensive, Selara and Ethan agreed to meet. In a neutral conference hall, surrounded by representatives from Earth and Veyna, they presented their experiences, highlighting how love did not negate logical inquiry, how emotion could drive innovation, compassion, and a deeper sense of responsibility toward others. Mira, gurgling in Selara's arms, seemed to underscore the unity they spoke of, a living embodiment of two worlds converging. Some Veynian officials still wore disapproving frowns, but others watched with open curiosity, noting the interplay of logic and empathy in the parents' words. The talk stretched on for days. In the end, while no immediate resolution was reached, a sense of cautious optimism lingered in the air. Both sides agreed to form a joint commission to explore the viability of emotional development programs on Veyna and to consider the possibility of expanded cultural exchanges. Selara's defector status was put on indefinite hold, pending further review. "We have a long road ahead," Ethan said quietly, as they stepped out of the conference hall. He glanced at Selara, who was gently rocking Mira, her hair shining with renewed hope. She smiled, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "Yes, but we are forging it together." Months passed, and slowly, the once unthinkable began to unfold. Veynian scholars and delegates traveled to Earth in increasing numbers, curious about the emotional dimension their people had long suppressed. Selara found herself both mother and mentor, guiding them through the labyrinth of human feelings. Ethan aided whenever possible, showing how rational thought and emotional bonds need not be at odds. Amid this cultural shift, their little family thrived. Mira grew quickly, showing signs of a keen, inquisitive mind inherited from her Veynian lineage, yet also displaying distinctly human warmth and expressiveness. Selara's hair became a constant reflection of her blossoming emotions, no longer subdued or concealed. She walked through life with a radiant confidence, proud of what she had discovered within herself, and proud of the new life she had brought into the universe. On Myra's first birthday, they gathered in the apartment that had once housed only Ethan and Selara. Now it rang with laughter and the gentle hum of interplanetary conversations, as a few Veynian visitors joined in the celebration alongside Earth friends. Lively music played, birthday candles flickered, and a small, delighted child clapped her hands in glee. Selara held Mira aloft, beaming. Ethan stood behind them, arms around both mother and child, eyes shining with happiness. Their friends cheered, cameras flashed, and for a moment, time itself seemed to crystallize, capturing the essence of unity they had fought so hard to achieve. As the evening wound down, Selara and Ethan stepped onto the balcony to gaze at the stars, an echo of their earliest conversations. He slipped an arm around her waist, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "Do you ever think about what might have been," he asked softly, "if you'd never come here?" She leaned into him, her hair glowing in soft, undulating colors that spoke of serenity and love. "I would have remained in a world where I felt only the faintest echoes of what might be. Now, I feel everything, and I share that with you, and with our daughter." Ethan's chest tightened with emotion. "You've changed my life, and you've changed the course of two worlds, I think." She turned her face to his, eyes shining in the starlight. "We did it together. Sometimes one must risk all that is familiar to discover a truer, richer existence." They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, hearts beating in unison beneath the vast expanse of sky. Distant constellations glowed, silent witnesses to the improbable love story that defied light years, societal barriers, and genetic boundaries. In that profound stillness, Ethan closed his eyes and breathed in the warmth of Selara's presence, grateful that fate had led them to each other. And Selara, her heart brimming with emotions she once thought impossible, silently vowed that their child would grow up knowing the beauty of both worlds, a bridge of hope between Veyna and Earth, forever reminding future generations that understanding, compassion, and love can transcend every frontier.